Today, we are going to cover how different organizations and teams are emerging in the cloud native land and in general in the development process because it gets very confusing, especially with the overlap between them. So let's talk about a two pizza team. So two pizza team is a newer phenomena, and what it essentially means is obviously that two pizza has come from the phrase that the team should only be large enough that when you're taking team out for lunch, it should not need more than two pizzas, two large pizzas. So typically that means the team size of 8 people. It can be one or two more. That also explains how. So earlier, development team was only responsible for writing the code, while there was a testing team, there was a data science team, and obviously there was a team to take care of all the configuration management. The first team which got merged with the development team was the testing team. So rather than testers, companies started looking for quality engineers. And there were a few trends which helped it. One of the trends was the advent of white box testing, or writing unit tests and the whole test driven development. So that made it very popular. So on one side, there was a lot of push for developers to think in terms of tests first, the whole test driven methodology. But at the same time, there was also the evolution of the QA, which was no longer QA but was QE and was more skilled. Then came the era of machine learning. So data science became really cool, and data scientists became very celebrated. But as more and more tooling is emerging, the role of data engineer as well as machine learning engineer, both of them, they are becoming part of the development team. The third trend is around DevOps. That is the first in DevOps which got merged into the two pizza team was the CI/CD functionality. In fact, CI/CD is considered synonymous to DevOps in a lot of cases, and that makes sense because SRE is still a newer phenomenon. There are companies which have separate SRE organizations, but at the same time, the SREs or the function of SREs is also getting merged into the two pizza team. So this is an interesting development which we should keep in mind while we are discussing other trends. So let's quickly look at the application lifecycle. So you start by planning, then you do coding, you do your builds, and then you do test. Then the release happens, deployment happens, and then you operate and monitor, and then based on the feedback you again plan. So if you look at from the planning point of view, so you operate, you monitor, then you plan, and obviously then based on planning, then you write a new piece of code. So essentially, if you look at different ways to divide the type of stakeholders here, one can be that the developers versus operators. So developers are the ones who traditionally write the code, and operators are the ones who traditionally take care of deploying it and take it onwards from there, or that was the conventional wisdom. So if we look at it from the developer versus operator frame, so developers are concerned with agility, while operators are concerned with stability. Remember the phrase, move fast and break things, and operators are the ones who pick calls late at night to fix those broken things. And developers have traditionally been close to business because whenever the new feature requests come, it goes to the development organization, and operators have traditionally been close to the IT. Though depending on the company size, they sometimes have been part of IT, sometimes they have been their own organization. So let's quickly look deeper into the role of developers. The developers deliver business value in the form of code. They understand the operational characteristics of the code, that is what function the code is built to perform. But they are unconcerned about how operational requirements are fulfilled, right? How the code gets deployed. Earlier it used to be that, who is going to buy the servers, who is going to where those servers will be put, what kind of availability will be there, and all those things. Developers did not care about that thing, at least till 10 years back, and then slowly developers started getting more and more involved. When I moved from the Java world to the big data world, for me, learning all these things related to data center was new and also exciting, so it was pretty intriguing to learn about the other side. So as an example, developers may be aware that their code writes data to a specific path to a file systems, but developers do not care that what kind of volume is mounted to that path and how that dependency is fulfilled. So now let's look at operators. So there are few types of operators. So the first is the application operators, and they will deliver business value by configuring, installing, and managing an application or applications. They focus on features like updating applications, auto scaling, auto recovery, etc. And they are concerned with how an application operational requirements are fulfilled, right? For example, how to mount an appropriate volume on a given path. But there is another type of operators, and which are infrastructure operators, and they deliver value by building application-centric platform and managing underlying infrastructure. For example, managing physical hardware, cloud service offerings, etc. They are less concerned about a particular configuration needs of an application, and they focus on the big picture. For example, managing underlying storage offerings that are used for provisioning persistent storage, right? In fact, rather than platform ops, there is a new term which is getting more and more popular, and that is the cloud ops, right? So they would say, okay, is it the application ops or the cloud ops, right? Now, application ops is still very confusing, but the cloud ops you're going to hear more and more. Now, let's talk about an entirely different type of organization which is evolving. In some cases, it's more hypothetical, or I would say in the more abstract form, but in some companies, it has started taking the more concrete form. And why that is even more contextual here is that Roost as a platform is built to take care of the developer experience, and essentially it means that make developers more productive, and that would in turn lead to the increased release velocity, and that's win-win for everyone. But the challenge comes that as the organizations are evolving, where does the developer experience org falls, right? So in fact, I should have put tooling also here, but let's keep that aside, because a lot of times platform engineering does take care of tooling. So platform engineering, right? So typically when we talk to customers, it's either the app dev teams or the platform engineering teams, right? Application development team's role is quite clear, right? They are building an application, or they are also called service owners, right? So that is another way to divide that between service owners and the platform owners, right? Again, there are multiple ways to slice the same information, and none of those ways are perfect, as you have already seen. So platform engineering teams take care of curating the platforms, more closer to like cloud ops, but they also take care of the developer tooling, and because developer experience is very closely related to developer and tooling, right? Then comes the role of DevOps. So DevOps, as we covered in the earlier slide, DevOps is essentially CI/CD and then also SRE to some extent. Right, and what is SRE, right? So basically, CI/CD is that obviously continuous integration and continuous deployment, right? That whether your services are integrating well with other services, and how much you can iterate over there. And in one of the other videos, I'll cover that why too much iteration is not a good thing. And then comes the continuous delivery or the continuous deployment part, right? I'm pretty sure very soon somebody would call it the observability organization or the monitoring organization. So that's a quick overview of how different teams are evolving. I would love to see your feedback in the comment section and continue the discussion over there. Thank you.